Welcome everybody to Science Unplugged. We're coming to you from the Alan Alda Center for Communicating Science at Stony Brook University. My name's Greg Carbonetti, and I'm sitting today with Wendy Hahn. Wendy, how are you?
Pretty good. How are you?
Have you slept? Is everything good? With the little baby, is everything coming together well?
She's a really good baby. She sleeps for 8 to 9 hours a night.
I think your baby actually sleeps more than I do every night.
She sleeps more than all of us.
So I've got to ask you a question. You've sat with me here before, and again, we're going to be putting these together, a lot of them. We're not sure which order they're going to be released in, but we'll figure that out when we get there. But you've sat with us as a guest, you've sat with us as a host. Which do you like better?
I would say I would rather be a guest.
Why?
It seems like I'm on a really warm seat now, especially because I'm sitting on 2 pillows. Booster seat. I don't think you noticed it, but
I did kind of notice the booster seat. It looks comfortable.
It is very comfortable.
Well, that's good. I think we're going to learn about a lot of cool stuff today. I'm actually not really too sure what we're talking about, so I'm going to be kind of just as ignorant as everybody else.
Me too. And it's actually really new.
Yeah, very cool. Do you want to introduce us to
so our guest today is Rachael Coccia, and she comes to the Department of Marine and Atmospheric Sciences. Is that correct?
Marine and Atmospheric Sciences. How are you, Rachael?
Hi, good. How are you?
I'm doing well. So, right off the bat, what is your passion? What do you do? Why should we care about what you guys are doing at the Atmospheric and Marine Science Center, which I think I reversed, but you get the idea.
Yeah, so actually my program is in Marine Conservation and Policy.
Cool.
So it's a 1-year master's program, really quick, but very intense. And it also covers a wide range of things. So with marine conservation, that can be anything from overfishing to the effects that global warming is having on the oceans with warmer temperatures, ocean acidification, and then finally something that another big thing that I feel like a lot of people aren't as aware of is plastic pollution in our oceans.
Plastic pollution. So plastic pollution is what you're mainly focused on when it comes to marine conservation.
That is one of the big things, just because I feel like it is so present, but it's also something that can be sort of hidden. Obviously, you're at the beach, you're looking out on the water, you may not see all a bunch of chunks of plastic floating around, but in fact, and I'm going to put this in terms of something we can all kind of visualize, there are 30 million elephant weight worth of plastic in our oceans today.
Okay, so not 30 million elephants, but 30
weight
million
of an elephant.
The weight of an elephant.
30 million elephants. Yes.
Isn't there a mass of plastic the size of Texas, or something just floating around?
So yeah, you're talking about one of the gyres. There are 5 main gyres in our oceans.
What is that? Gyres?
Yes.
Is that with a G?
A G.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is it like a plastic continent?
It basically, it's so when plastic enters the ocean, it follows these currents that are driven by surface winds, and it takes the plastic and carries it on this long journey to one of these gyres. And the gyre is basically just an accumulation of plastic because it's where these currents all kind of come together. And the plastic will just kind of sit and accumulate there. But it's taken a long journey to get there, so it's really broken down a lot by the time it reaches the gyre. So it could be to the size that we might not even see it with the naked eye. And those are called microplastics. And those microplastics kind of end up sinking into the water column, creating a plastic soup. And these gyres are also called deserts of the sea because they're completely void of life, no nutrients whatsoever. So yeah, they're pretty scary.
So one thing though, what exactly do you do with regards to how can we fix this problem?
Right. So yeah, so that's what I'm most interested in is learning about these problems, but I don't necessarily do the research end of things, figuring out, we pretty much know how big the issue is. It's growing every year by 1.5 million elephants. So yes,
I'm liking this elephant analogy.
Yes.
I find it's easier than using some big crazy number that you don't really understand.
Still frightening though.
Yes, it is. Yeah. So what I'm trying to do is exactly that. So what can we do about it? It's the problem. We know what we know about it. What can we do? And there, thankfully, are a lot of people that are on the job. It can be a difficult issue, though, because like I said, if you're talking about plastic, you can't even see. How do you even attempt to start cleaning that up?
So I actually got a question for you. Now, you mentioned, a few kind of microplastics in the water column. And is there any particular kind of plastic that's, accumulating the most? The first thing I think of when I think of, plastic pollution would be, Poland Spring water bottles floating around in the ocean and stuff like that. Is that kind of what's going on here? Or are we more concerned about, the other thing I think about are these, washing beads that, used to be in all these lotions and stuff like that? Yeah, something like that. Is there any particular type that's really causing the most problem, or is it just a conglomeration of everything?
You know, it's hard to really tell, especially once we do have it in the ocean and it has broken down a bit. The origin of the plastic can be a little bit difficult, but we do know that 80% of the problem is from land-based sources.
Gotcha.
So we do have about 20% that comes from the ocean. So that could be like from fishing gear or other things like that. But a lot of it is littering and our waste disposal system. So yeah, I mean, the big ones you think about obviously are the plastic bottles, the microbeads, what you were talking about in the products. And a lot of times the way to
fix is a microbead for those of people that don't know what microbeads
yeah,
are.
microbead. So you can think of it almost like a microplastic, super small, you can't see it. And it gets added to a lot of products to kind of give, I believe it's more of a texture component to it. So yeah, the way to fix those things really comes down to regulation. And we've kind of heard a little bit about, microbead bans, plastic bag bans you may have heard about in certain areas. So that's a great start. But that's one end of the problem, right? Stopping it from the source. The other end is we've got all this plastic in the ocean now. So what do we do about it? How do we get it out? And there's been a lot of people trying different things. But for me, the one that stands out the most was actually created by a 17-year-old. And his name's Boyan Slat. And he created this thing, very simple name, very straightforward, the ocean cleanup. So what the ocean cleanup does is it's the V-shaped array that gets put into, he wants to put them in the gyres. So you mentioned the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. He wants
so
to
when you say like a V-shaped array, is this just like a machine or some type of...
So you can think of it as like a buoy system that floats in the water, and his whole thing is you need to work with the current, not against it.
Makes sense.
So he has it so it can kind of move with the current, with the water, and it's set up to really help the current push all of the plastic into this array. And then there's it's a screen that drops down. So it's not a net because he doesn't want to, risk catching fish or animals. So it's a screen that drops down in the water and just pushes and collects all of this plastic. And then there's a catch basin that will start collecting it as it sits in the V shape. And then a vessel will come out and clean it all up, take it to shore, and they plan to actually recycle and sell all the ocean plastic that they collect and hopefully make the whole thing self-sustainable.
Well, that actually sounds like the mission of, conservative, actually trying to get out, but, not just, what do we do with it then, but, we can turn it over and make new things.
Right.
Really cool.
And there's actually a huge market now for ocean plastic. So I don't know if you've seen the new Adidas sneakers that are made of ocean plastic. So those are on the market now, which is really neat. And then there's also Pharrell Williams has a fashion line called Raw for the Oceans, and he makes clothing out of ocean plastic.
Good. So it's actually, it sounds like there's starting to be some traction here. People are starting to recognize that there's a very big problem.
Yeah.
Neat. So another question would be, other than, being, very passionate about it and being, an advocate for, marine conservatism or, conservation conservatism, what are some other things other than this V-buoy? Like, how do you get out every day and almost, spread this message or, help others get involved if they so choose?
Yeah, so that's a big part of it. A lot of people think, well, there's so much ocean entering the plastic entering the ocean every day. What are my actions doing? How can I help? And it's actually, if you start paying attention to the plastic you use in your everyday life, it's all over the place. I mean, if you go out to eat, pick up some fast food, even just going to like a catered event, you find plastic everywhere you go. So what I've really tried to do and what I've tried to help others think about is really trying to cut back on your own plastic usage. So a lot of people seem to do a really good job with remembering their reusable bags when they go grocery shopping, which is great, but that's just one step.
And there's actually been bans in some countries, right? I think France, right? That you can't do plastic bags.
You have to pay for plastic bags now.
Which makes sense.
Exactly, and some individual vendors are actually doing that as well. So you can choose to try to shop, if you can, at places that are supporting anti-plastic type movements. But in your own life, so I actually carry around with me just it's a metal fork and spoon combo thing that it's like a pocket size. Yeah, and it's kind of like you would think of like a camping like set. And I just carry that around with me. So I love to get frozen yogurt, right? But there's only option when you get frozen yogurt is a plastic spoon.
Yeah.
So you have to start recognizing these things in your everyday life where you encounter them and think, well, what can I do? What can I keep with me, to make sure I'm not causing the problem. I'm not adding to the problem. So that's what I try to help people think about. And I'm actually right now working on trying to, and it's a long process, but put together a plastic ban for the School of Marine and Atmospheric Sciences. So I would like to make sure that we, as a school, are not contributing to this problem, because you do see, the plastic forks, knives, plates, cups, bags floating around campus. And, as a school that supports conservation, we really should not be contributing to this massive problem.
That makes a whole lot of sense. So I got another question for you. What influences you to want to do this kind of work? As a Long Island native, I've been spoiled that, right here we have the Long Island Sound. You go 20 miles south, we're going to be the Great South Bay. So, I've been surrounded by water my whole life. Is that something that led you to want to do this type of work? Is there a particular, anecdote that, affected you personally that you said, I've got to get into this line of work, or, something that really drives you?
Sure. Well, it's kind of funny because I grew up in upstate New York in the Rochester area, so not near the ocean at all. Yeah, but my whole childhood, I loved swimming. I was always part of the swim team. My mom would call me a fish. I could never get out of the water. If we went on a vacation, a trip that had, the ocean, they would want to go, all right, we'll go to the beach, and then we're going to want to go do some shopping. I'm like, no, just leave me here. I'm good. I'll just hang out at the ocean. It's always just been a place that I felt really connected to. And, I knew I wanted to do something to support it. And I had thought about doing marine biology and doing more of the research end of things. But it turns out, as I started to learn about all of these issues affecting the ocean, I was like, okay, what can I do to make the biggest impact? And that really comes down to the outreach, to helping people change their lifestyle to not contribute to these problems, and also policy. So that's kind of where I am now, and just really driven by, I guess, that kind of unexplainable connection that I feel to the ocean, and just, kind of the outrage at all of these terrible things that are happening, and they're all caused by humans, really.
Yeah. One thing that you mentioned, you didn't want to do the research. Do you have any advice for maybe researchers in marine research? Is there any way they can help with outreach and communicating science? Because this is what we're all about.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. So that's actually something the Alda Center really does a great job doing, is helping scientists that are strictly research focused, explain what they're doing to the public. Because if you are working on something like ocean plastic or overfishing, you need to let other people know about it, and not just other scientists, because that's just, the problem's never going to get any better if people don't understand, what's actually happening, and we're not making changes to fix it. So I guess the biggest piece of advice that I have is, if you aren't comfortable, explaining your work, you need to kind of pair up with someone who is. And that's where I kind of come in. So I understand the science, I'm interested in the science, but I'd like to be that person that's able to, take all of that and communicate it to the public and policymakers in a way that we can enact some real change.
Okay, so now we're going to just stop and switch gears to do a quiz. So this is something we do with all of the guests. So you clearly know a little bit about pop culture. You mentioned Pharrell Williams.
Pharrell. I have to say, I only know that because I was researching plastic, people that are supporting plastic, so we'll see.
So we'll step back and I have 5 questions, and then it's open to you as well.
I have no idea what these are.
Okay.
So I'll try to back clean up if we have any problems here.
Okay, so on March 31st, 2014, we said goodbye to this American sitcom with the episode Last Forever. After 9 seasons, on which show do we find out that Ted Mosby may have ended up with Robin, I can't pronounce her last name, Scherbatsky, after all?
Close enough.
So you know it.
Oh, I got it.
Oh, I know this show. You want to know the show name?
Yes.
Is it How I Met Your Mother?
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
You got it.
Now, as I didn't watch the show in its totality, but I do know a lot of people were pissed off by how it ended.
Yeah.
That I was aware of.
See, I'm not even sure how it ended. I've seen bits and pieces of
I think he met the mother. I think that
I think
was...
so. There was an umbrella involved and a train.
Something like
That's
that.
all I know.
You never even get to meet her?
I suppose, perhaps. We digress.
Okay.
And now the next
All
one.
right, so 1 for 1. Good.
So now I think you probably might know this. What is the largest living bird?
Largest living bird?
Yeah.
And
a hint would be it could be found on land also.
Oh, okay.
That's a big hint.
I've got 2 in my head.
You wanna give
All
it
right,
a go?
Rachel, give it a wild guess.
A flamingo? I don't know.
They might be the prettiest bird.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm trying to think
all
of
right.
if you're thinking height.
I'd lead off with the California condor. No. Then my second guess would be like an albatross, but then I got nothing.
So actually it's larger than that. It's an ostrich.
Ostrich.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
You know what? That's kind of a loaded question because
right.
you're not thinking about
You don't
flying
think about
birds.
yeah. That's why I said land.
They creep me out.
Yeah, they do.
Ostriches are creepy. I mean, they're great, but they are kind of creepy.
So next question: how is the ground nut better known?
How is the ground
Like a
nut?
better and well-known name for the ground nut.
For the ground nut.
Yeah.
I think I got this one.
And the hint is it's not a nut.
Oh.
So that's even a further hint.
Well. I don't know.
Eggcorn?
No. Should I tell you guys?
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
So it's actually the peanut.
The peanut.
Yeah, and it's actually not a nut. It's a
peanut?
legume. The
Oh,
classification.
a legume.
Yeah, legume.
Interesting. All right.
Would
See,
not
I
have
think you
known
guys,
that.
the deck is stacked against you here,
Yeah.
Rachel.
It's all right. I think the next two maybe.
Okay.
So, which singer's real name is Stephanie Joanne Angelina Germanagata? I'm butchering names.
Is that Lady Gaga?
That is Lady
Okay,
Gaga. You got
all right.
it.
You had me at Stephanie.
Yes. So the last one is it's a kind of a trick question also. Where was the fortune cookie invented?
I want to say like the U.S.
Yep.
That was my guess.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
So you went 3 for
Yep.
5. So that's a win in my book.
And it's in the state of California, actually.
Oh, really? So yeah, I've been to China and realized that a lot of the things we think are Chinese are American.
Yeah.
Yeah, the American Chinese food is
Exactly.
quite different than what I was eating in China. So.
Very cool. All right, so we got 2 more questions, and then we're going to let you off the hot seat here. So to hopefully put like a positive spin on things here, we've diagnosed an issue. There's a ton of plastic pollution, plastic elephants or elephant-sized plastics.
Elephant-sized worth of plastic.
Exactly. Are we making strides in correcting this problem, or have these plastic manufacturers realize that maybe we need to start changing things up here, or our business model needs to change, or is this getting better, or do you think this is going to get worse before there's actual real change that occurs?
Well, I mean, it's a tricky question because, you can tell that there are a lot of organizations, businesses that do have this top of mind now, and they're trying to come up with solutions, but it's really hard because we've really become a culture that's just totally over-relied on plastic for so long. It's in everywhere you look, you'll find it. So it's going to take a really long time before we can really find a good alternative to the solution, because plastic does have a lot of positives, and that's why people use it all the time. It can be durable, but we have to come up with a really good alternative, I think, before we'll really see some headway on solving the problem. But again, it is good that people are talking about it. We've got 17-year-olds out there that are trying to think about what can we do, and I think that's key. Is the younger generations are recognizing these problems, and they realize, hey, we're gonna have to live with a plastic-filled ocean. By 2050, there will be more plastic than fish in the ocean. That is something that
It's not a good stat.
kids are gonna have to
Yeah.
live with. No, it's not. So I think that it's really a kind of a beam of hope to see that younger generations are recognizing these issues, and they're saying, okay, I'm gonna be creative and I'm going to come up with a solution and we're going to try it. And that's exactly, I think, what we're seeing. So, we're going on the right track, but it's going to take a little bit more really to push us towards the right, end goal.
And I kind of jumped the gun before mentioning science communication, so we already asked that
Oh,
last
please
final
ask
question.
again.
But we'll try to switch it up a little bit. Do you have like a science communicator that's in your life that kind of influenced you to go into this? Because you're really big on science communication and you're really good at it. Frankly, I'm very nervous just sitting here, and you're the one to not see. So can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, well, what's interesting is how I got started in science communication was on a show called Aqua Kids. And it's a children's show that I filmed while I was in undergraduate school. I was going for public relations, but I was super interested in science. I had a biology minor, and I wanted to get more involved. So I did this show where we went around and we traveled mostly on the East Coast of the U.S., but we went to Hawaii and Alaska and the Bahamas, and we talked to scientists about what was going on in the marine environment. And it really helped me kind of hone my skills in talking to a scientist that may not have had experience trying to explain what they're doing, especially to kids. I mean, our target audience was young kids. So it really was kind of a challenge. And the first time I ever thought about, explaining complicated scientific topics to, younger audiences, or even someone that doesn't understand the science. So that was really the first time that I started thinking about it and decided, this is what I want to do. And I want to continue doing this, whether it's, through a television show or just with an organization that really wants to get their mission across.
Cool.
I'm really glad I asked that question.
I know, it's a good one. Aqua Kids, check it out.
Yeah.
So Rachel, thanks for joining us today. Thanks for being on the front lines of marine conservation. As go the oceans, goes our planet, so we better
Exactly.
figure it out pretty quick.
That's right.
And I think we can let her go now.
We can
Everything's
let you
good.
go. Yeah.
All right. Well, this is good. I had a lot of fun today.
I did too.
I had no idea about
This is only
gyres
one
playing.
little thing that she does.
I know.
Yeah.
Very
It is
cool.
just a little
Well,
dot on the map.
You'll have to come back and fill us in on the other
I'd
things,
love
too,
to.
because
Thank
this is pretty
you.
neat. All right, so once again, everybody, thanks for joining us today. Again, we are Science Unplugged from the Allen Alda Center for Communicating Science. Please come back, join us again. We're going to be doing a lot of these, and we hope you learned a lot. I sure learned a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And for those that weren't sold at the very beginning, we have everything here. We have Aqua Kids, plastic elephants,
Exactly.
How I Met Your Mother. We have ostriches. We have everything here.
Creepy ostriches.
Creepy ostriches, but most importantly, stop throwing plastic in the ocean. It's not a good idea. Get out there, learn all you can, and we hope to see you next time. Thanks for joining us. Take care.